9 minutes after the hour. It is a wet and wild Tuesday morning. They got a couple of the lanes reopened now on westbound 40. From what I understand, though, the southbound 275 still having some trouble. So just...
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about that yet.
Here's the thing. Just, if you can, just avoid that whole area. Just avoid that whole area right now because it's still very nasty. If you can get around it without going down right there around the 387 mark, it's a very, very messy situation right now. They had a rollover wreck about 5:30-ish this morning. I was stuck in it for about a half an hour. So it's just not good. So please take it easy this morning. Tell you what, in fact, while you're out there taking it easy, getting to where you're going safe and sound, we have in studio with us, we have a treat. We really do. Now, don't shake your head. It's true. It's a treat. If you're a reader of the Shopper News, if you follow local politics, then you know this name, and we are very lucky and very honored to have her in studio with us. It's the first time she's ever been on our show with us.
That's true.
It's Betty Bean.
First time.
The legendary Betty Bean. Hello, welcome to the Rude Awakening.
Good morning.
We appreciate. Now, see, we get the people. They normally just the writers. We get them to come out here on our show, and then they get to let their hair down. It's all live right now. It's an exciting thing.
Oh, really?
That's right. It's exciting.
You can say anything you want.
You can say anything you want. It's okay.
Do you know me?
It's okay. Nobody's listening. It's all right. No, it's over the weekend. Of course, if you were following any of this, if you're following any of this District 2 campaign going on, Miss Bean, like myself and some other folks, Mike Danilla, several members of the local media got these emails over the weekend of copies of an email that was sent out mid Friday afternoon. Mm-hmm. Basically what ended up happening is we talked about yesterday. There was an email sent out on October 10th. It came from the West High School PTSO co-secretary, Carolyn Resler, but it was sent on the West High PTSO Gmail address, and the long story short, apparently it violates federal IRS laws for a 501c3, which the West High School PTSO is, and there's been a lot of flap and discussion since then. Oh, well, it's the people say, it's the PTA rules and this and that, and they didn't know. Regardless, has nothing to do with PTA rules, state or local. It doesn't have anything to do with somebody whether they knew they did this or didn't do it on purpose. The fact of the matter is, when you look at it, it basically comes down to this was sent out, and now it puts in jeopardy the question of if they're going to be able to keep their 501c3 status, if the IRS decides to come and investigate this, and what goes on from there. And the Knox County Law Director Bud Armstrong is looking into it, doing an investigation just to see exactly what happened and if there's any sort of violation. I'm sure Bud Armstrong is also involved in it just to make sure that the county and the school board are covered as well, just in case. Because here, even though you have this outside volunteer organization, it ties itself directly to a school, and then in turn ties itself to the school system, which in turn ties itself to the county. But one of the first people to report on it, Betty Bean, and oddly enough, you said you were at the League of Women's Voters Forum last night.
Yes.
And we were thinking this would become a big thing, but it apparently never came up.
No, the League censors the questions that can be asked. It's hard for me to imagine that nobody in the room asked a question about any of this financial stuff, but no questions made it through. And maybe censor is too strong a word, but they do cull.
They pre-screen them?
They do.
Yeah.
You write questions on a card, and they value civility above information.
Above information? Wow. Let's see. That's sad, because we were expecting people to come there and ask a lot of questions. Another thing you uncovered in your report over the weekend, apparently Miss Sanger, Tracy Sanger, has apparently set a record. She's raised, which is odd because in a very, very short, one of the shortest election cycles that I can remember, she's raised an inordinate amount of money.
Well, it Yeah, and it may not be. I thought it was the most in history already. It may not be. Doug Harris may hold that record. It's kind of. I'm a reporter. I'm not good at math. But my friend Tamara Shepard, who is an accountant, tells me that Doug Harris collected more, and I will take her word for it. But I would say that Sanger is going to be gaining on him. She's got a month to go.
And she's already got 43,000. Now, I thought Doug was right around 40, 41, but Doug also had he had primaries. He had almost a year.
Well, this other race that we just watched was about a year long.
Yeah, and the other races had 2 elections, a primary and a runoff. This is just one election. So really, she, depending on how you want to parse it, she may hold the record. But it's a pretty astounding sum of money. I know. I live in the 2nd District, and people over there are feeling kind of invaded.
Well, you said you live over in the 2nd District. I was wondering if you're raising that kind of money. I'm wondering how she's spending it, because early voting starts tomorrow. I would think that she'd be on the air everywhere. Are you getting mailers? Are there signs everywhere? Are there billboards?
Both she and Roe have a lot of signs, and Roe has sent out a lot of direct mail. Sanger, I haven't received much from her yet. I expect there to be a deluge. She has hired Joe May and Gary Drennan, who are local political operatives, and they're sort of famous for floods of direct mail, and I would expect she's going to. She's got to spend that money.
Yeah, it's really interesting that
maybe TV, maybe radio. Maybe she'll throw you guys some business.
Sweet.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
That'd be very nice.
Well, you'd think that if with early voting being tomorrow, that you would already have seen some of that. Are you considered what they call the super voter? Yeah, so you would have gotten some. If she had been sending out mailers, you would have gotten.
Unless I'm cold, I don't know. I would call me if I were a candidate.
Talking with Betty Bean. If you've got a question for Betty, if something you'd like to share, text box open, chat room open. Of course, the phone line's open, 865-243-TALK, 243-8255. I've been getting a lot of mail. We're getting a lot of mail sent into the Rude Awakening text box or mailbox as well. They're hearing from people who are in the 2nd District, and you said you're in the 2nd District. Some people that are saying they're kind of upset at the fact that it seems like people outside of the district, especially people here in West Knoxville, are now trying to affect what happens in the 2nd District. Are you getting that sense too out there?
Yeah, it's like the barbarians are at the gates, and they've got to fight us off.
Yeah. And I can understand why they would make some people upset, especially with this whole issue with the. Well, now, since you were the one that broke the story and reported it first, the West High PTSO thing, how do you see this panning out? Is there going to be more focus put on this? Is this going to be kind of brushed away?
I don't know, and personally, I'm not real inclined to bash them much more. As I told you earlier, they're amateurs and they screwed up. I am more interested in this flood of money. You remember the speech that Sam McKenzie gave to County Commission about the unseen hand and the outside interference in his district. Well, this is a lot more money and going to be a lot more intense, and it's interesting that the establishment, and I like Sam McKenzie. I think he's maybe the smartest person on the county commission. He's a good guy, but I disagree with him about this. It's like, well, frankly, can we talk frankly? The establishment folks are so terrified of Steve Hunley. It's like there's a rich guy out there running loose who ain't on their side.
And Steve Hunley, of course, the editor of the Knox Focus.
Yeah, and it, that's who Sam was discussing. But I don't think he put $43,000 into Marshall Walker's race.
Yeah. Now, you uncovered, and talking about this flood of money, and we talk about a lot of money that apparently, and here's the thing, it's completely legal for anybody anywhere to donate money, as long as you're not representing a 501c3, and you're sending out from the 501c3, telling people from your charitable organization to support this and send money. Anybody can donate anything, and anybody can do what they want. And this, all this stuff with the flap with the West High thing started with an email originally from who was it, David
Schmidt.
Yeah, and he was completely reading Schmidt's email. It's completely fine. There's nothing wrong with that email, and he as a private citizen,
he did intend for it to be sent to the membership.
Yeah.
So he.
But him as a private citizen just going ahead and donating and asking his friends to donate is fine. Now, when you start involving the charitable organization, that's when you start having some gray area and you start having these questions. But anybody can donate from anywhere. But you also uncovered in this, going into Tracy Sanger's coffers, a lot of money from one family. Mm-hmm. And who was that family?
Oh.
Wouldn't be the Haslams, would
it? It would be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why is it so important for the powers that be now to keep that District 2 seat?
Well, because it is the swing vote.
Yeah.
Their side, the side that supports the superintendent and all those measures, pretty much as Amber Roundtree, she carried her rubber stamp around when she was campaigning. It's now a 5-4, sort of, although Mr. Fugit, the interim guy, he's sort of a wild card, as he's shown us. But it's pretty much a 5-4 board, and they want it to be 5-4 the other direction, as do the roughly the teachers' side, we'll call it, they want to keep the majority on their side, and so it's a big fight. This one's for all the marbles. Yeah. Although it takes it takes 6 votes to terminate McIntyre's contract. So. Although I've heard there may be some questions about that.
Yeah, and then of course there's been discussion about that, and a lot of the people, and including McMillan, and people saying, look, it would be more expensive to get rid of him than to keep him. But then some people on the other side, look, it's going to cost more in the long run to keep him than get rid of him. And that's one of those things that I don't think is going to be decided anytime soon, regardless who wins that seat.
No, I wouldn't look for him to be tossed out.
No, I really don't either. We're talking with Betty Bean. Betty Bean, of course, if you follow any politics, if you read the Shopper News, you are very familiar with the name. Betty Bean talking about some of the goings-on right now in the District 2 school board seat elections. And of course, that's your only local election that's coming up, your local seat county election that's coming up on the 4th. And of course, early voting starting tomorrow. Got some texts coming in. Of course, if you've got a phone question, 865-243-TALK, 243-8255. Chat room open for you as well. And, of course, the big story that broke this weekend was involving the huge coffer that Tracy Sanger has raised for a very very short campaign leading up to November 4th, the November 4th election, and, of course, the West High School PTSO email. And I'm going to share with you, Betty, when we get back, the most troubling thing I found with that email. It really didn't even have anything to do with the whole 501c3 violation or possible violation. The thing about the email that bothered me the most, well, I'll tell you coming up. It's 8:23. 8:26. Our number, 865-243-TALK, 243-8255. Cutting a swath through all the information there is to have. Good, bad, indifferent, whatever. It is the Rude Awakening here on Knox Talk Radio, and helping to cut a path through all the information out there and bring you something interesting to read and things to talk about. The only Betty Bean from the Shopper News. She's joining us here in studio this morning. We appreciate you joining us, Betty, and I, along with everybody else, got to read your story from this weekend. You, like myself, received some emails concerning an email sent out recently on Friday by West High School's PTSO, which was soliciting support and financial contributions for Tracy Sanger. the thing that really bugged me the most about that email wasn't even the possible breach of the IRS rules for 501c3s. The thing that really bothered me about the tone of that email was the initial beginning of the email where Miss Resler impugns not only the new chairman, Mike McMillan, but the new members of the board as well.
Well, actually, I think that was Mr. Schmid.
Or was it Mr. Schmid?
Did that. Yeah, she didn't do much more than just forward it.
I don't.
Man,
those first initial parts of the email, that's what bothered me the most, because it talks about it brings up the conversation with Mr. McMillan as a former teacher that was quote about to be fired from the system for a series of offensive. He decided to retire instead. And then
he got a target letter from the Justice Department, didn't he?
Yeah,
I'm joking.
Yeah,
I'm joking.
Yeah. No, I mean it really takes a very nasty tone.
Yes, it does.
Toward McMillan and toward these new members of the board.
Well, I mentioned this on Knox Views, a website that I frequent.
Yeah.
It struck me that was this email was sent to maybe a couple hundred of his closest friends. And many of those same people are now furiously lobbying the school board for this Bearden Middle School IB program, the middle years IB program.
Yeah.
And the first rule of lobbying is not insult the people you're lobbying.
Yeah.
So I don't think this helps their chances any.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing was, just a couple weeks ago, we had Mike McMillan sitting right here in that chair that you're in right now. And his main thing to us that morning was, look, I just want to make sure we can figure out a way that we can all start working together and working for the students in Knox County, because that's what's important. All this other stuff is petty, and it's gotten to the point where it's just ridiculous. We need to get past all this. We need to open up communications, and we need to work together to make sure that the students in Knox County are the benefactors of our work. And for somebody to sit there and say that, and then for somebody to then turn around and say, oh, well, he's this and he's that, and we don't, and we're going to go it completely dismantles any hope, at least from the outside, that, hey, we've got people all coming together to try to make things better for the students.
Yeah, well, that's a talking point for everybody has their talking points, and that's a talking point for their side. Mostly what they want to do is continue this Broad Academy agenda, or however you want to characterize it. Yeah. They think it's working. They're heavily backed by the business community,
sure.
and they have a lot of clout, and that's what they want to do. And they will, if Mike McMillan were, if he played Tarzan on a TV series, they'd be talking about how he ran around in a loincloth. I don't think I want to go there.
I don't think you should.
But you pick on what you got.
Oh, sure.
You find whatever perceived flaws there are, and
sure.
you attack them.
It's amazing. Our number 865-243-TALK, 243-8255. Big Jim says most all campaign consultants with their fees pull media bloggers from mailing lists. That's Jim's comment there. Would you like to weigh in on that?
Actually, I know a couple of people in the 2nd District, and I have not heard about any direct mail showing up yet. Yeah. There was one piece with her list of friends, and there was a letter. I have gotten a couple of pieces from her, but that was early on. There hasn't been a flood. Okay. But Big Jim's probably right.
Yeah. Our number, 865-243-TALK, 243-8255, talking with Betty Bean. Lauren, good morning. You're on with Betty.
Good morning, guys. How are y'all this morning?
Good.
Hey, Lauren.
Oh, pretty good. Hey, Betty. Hey, I just had one comment to make, and then also had a question for Betty. The first comment I wanted to make about Ms. Sanger, I had been asked yesterday by somebody, what the Speak Group, who's really been at the forefront of pushing for some of the change within our school system, had against Ms. Sanger, because we had come out and endorsed Jamie Rowe. And I told this person that we have no problem with her personally whatsoever. Everything I've heard about her has been exceedingly positive, but two things really stuck out to me. One is, up until last night, I had never spoken with her, and she had never reached out to the Speak group as far as trying to get information about what's going on with our schools or really trying to work with us in any way. But Miss Rowe, the second she decided to run, had called me and was meeting with Speak members and also helped work on the recommendations for the 2020 plan and has really been in close contact with us the whole way. And so that really just told me that she was serious about starting to deal with some of these issues that we brought up. And the other concern I had, knowing that she had gotten so many contributions from the Haslam family, it is also true that her husband does work for Pilot Flying J Corporation, and she was speaking with me last night and assuring me that, those donations were made by people that she knew long before she decided to run. But my concern is, what kind of votes are they going to expect if they're putting that kind of money into her campaign? And my fear would be for, her husband, if he is an employee of them, is that something that they would be able to hold over her head? I certainly hope not, but after witnessing what I have in the last year, nothing is out of the realm of possibility when it comes to politics. Anyway, that's just kind of the statements I had to say about Ms. Sanger. The question I had for Betty is, Dr. McIntyre has tried to work really hard the last year on this perception of wanting to work with teachers and work with whoever is on the board. But how do you think this situation with the PTSO really affects that? Because to me, it seems like, he's putting that out there publicly, but then behind the scenes, there's all these things going on that shows that he really isn't interested in dealing with teachers' concerns. And also, do you think that the email coming from that PTSO is related to trying to garner votes for that IB program, and maybe they're a little worried, if someone else were to get on the board, that wouldn't happen? That's just kind of what I wanted to hear from Betty, what you thought about those things.
I'm a little confused about your first question. I'll go to the second one about the IB program. I don't think they connected the two, and it's not exactly the same people, but there is considerable overlap. It struck me exactly the opposite, that they've kind of they've messed up.
Right.
I think the first rule of lobbying is suck up.
Right.
Not bash the people you're lobbying.
Yeah. Well, I just wondered if they thought, maybe they could get that swing vote in November, that they didn't need the other board members because they would have enough votes to approve it and they wouldn't have to do that.
Well, maybe so. I would hope they're smarter than that.
Me too. The first question that I had, just to go back to that, is, do you think that the situation with the PTSO really kind of tarnishes Dr. McIntyre's image of trying to work things out with teachers and trying to be above board with his dealings with the school board? Do you think he had anything to do with this behind the scenes, trying to push for support of another candidate, since a lot of the people sending her money have supported other candidates that have been, really supportive of pretty much everything he's done?
I don't think he's had to say a word. I think, there are plenty of other people to do that for him.
Okay. Well, I just want to hear your thoughts on it, Betty.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Lauren. We appreciate that. We're talking with Betty Bean from the Shopper News. When we're going to take a quick break, check on the roads one more time. We get back. Tamara's on the line. If you would like to join, if you've got a question, or if you've got a comment, you can do so on the text box. You can join in the chat room, or you can call 865-243-TALK, 243-8255. Talking this morning with Betty Bean about some of the goings-on in the very interesting, short, but very interesting, drama-filled, edge-of-your-seat action that is the school board District 2 election.
It's the hottest race on the ballot, I think, coming up here.
We talked about it. I mean, all the others, we had all these, the time and the different, and then but this time, basically, all the action and drama packed into 7 short weeks.
Absolutely.
With twice the action and twice the drama.
And it hasn't disappointed. And we knew it was going to be drama-filled. And
It's a fun-size election.
It is a fun-size election, just in time for Halloween. That's wonderful. That's exciting, and it's almost got twice the amount of money in it, too. Incredible
there you
stuff.
Go.
Hey, talking with Betty B when we get back. More with Betty. 841. Our number 865-243-TALK, 243-8255. Rain coming down, sometimes in buckets. Take it easy on the roadways. They're trying very hard to get westbound 40 reopened for you and 275 south reopened for you. Just they're working. I mean, they're working their tails off, and it's not a nice day to be out there trying to do that. But we'll let you know when everything's reopened again for you. Just still some things to take care of as they are getting it slowly reopened. Talking this morning with Betty Bean from the Shopper News. Now, I know, Betty, you said you didn't want to, you didn't want to go back and attack the people at the West High PTSO and everything. Problem is, though, and now people say, well, maybe it was a mistake and this and that. Problem is, in January, there was a directive that came out from the then president of the the Knox County
Council of
whatever. What is that? Isn't
well,
omnipresent overseer of all PTAs?
I suppose. But now these PTSO people would not have gotten that. It's a different organization.
Yeah.
I mean, they're subject to the same rules,
sure.
but they PTOs and PTSOs and QUPs and whatever, they bypass a national organization and don't have to send their dues in. And
but they're an extension of a PTA, basically.
Well, I mean, they're a PTA-like organization, and they are subject to the same IRS rules for nonprofits.
And you would think that a Knox County Council of PTAs, the overseer, the Lord Sauron, the Lord of the Ring of the PTAs, as you would have here in town, would have one PTA to rule them all. You would think they would oversee all this, and or at least somebody would say, hey, Sandra Rowcliffe back in January said, PTAs are non-commercial and these follow us and we shouldn't do this, even though she then eventually turned around and broke her own rule later on. But, somebody would pay attention sometime, wouldn't they?
Well, I'm sure everybody gets that lecture when they're installed in office, and probably all these organizations have handbooks.
Yeah.
But I don't know, and I don't think you can assume they would have gotten Rowcliffe's communication.
All right. You're being too nice to him. You're being too nice to him, Betty.
I'm just nuts.
If I was a parent at that school right now, I would be very angry. I would want to know. I would want some answers. Why my PTSO is focused on something else in another district, and why they're taking time and possibly money away from my school and my child's school to do something else in somebody else's district. That would make me angry. But then I'm petty, and that's just me.
Well, and I think Catherine Banner's the principal over there. I bet she's upset today.
Yeah.
I mean, because that is a very from what I hear, a very well-run, well-funded PTSO. Does a lot for the school.
And if I was a member of that foundation, I would be very upset, because here you're calling the wrath of the IRS onto the PTSO. Well, if they come there and look at that, they're going to look real hard at the foundation as well. You've just turned the spotlight on everything over there. Now we got to turn around and make sure that everything's clean, nothing's ever been done wrong, and blah blah blah. It would just make me very upset. But a lot of things make me upset. That's something I have to deal with every day, Betty. It's all right. She looks very concerned.
She does.
Okay, I'm good. We'll go to the phones. Tamara, good morning. You're on with Betty Bean.
Hey, good morning, guys. Hey, thanks for getting up so very early and in the muck this morning. I tuned in just a minute ago in time to hear you discussing Ms. Sanger's fundraising to date, and I had a comment to offer that I hope hasn't already been discussed. Betty, you and I had talked about it previously. In Nashville, right down the road, we saw school board candidate Amy Frogg embattle an opponent in her last race. That opponent raised over $113,000 in a local district level race. Forgive me if that has been commented on, but the reason I bring it up is because I'm sorely afraid that's where Knox County is headed. Now, in the case of Ms. Frogg's Nashville area race, that money was also coming from outside the district, from outside the county. We're already there here in Knox County. That's what Sanger is demonstrating in her race. But what's worse, in Nashville, they're seeing an influx of money in local district level races from outside the state. And that is the next step. And I do think that in the coming years, we're going to see triple-digit funding for local district level races if we don't start paying attention now. I don't know how to preclude that. Is there election law we need to tweak? What is it we need to look at? But I think it speaks to a very basic concept of democracy, that we settle these things ourselves. Thank you very much. We don't need or appreciate the outside influences.
I'm not sure there's much you can do. The Supreme Court, with Citizens United, opened up the floodgates and equated money to free speech, and I don't think anybody knows yet where that's going to lead, but probably no place good.
I don't profess to know the nitty-gritty as to that Supreme Court ruling. I am aware that corporations are now people too. It may be
my friend.
Yeah, really. It may be then that what we need to look at isn't corporations, but where those corporations are. Do we have the ability to confine donations in a local race or in a local district race to just the people and the corporations to have nexus there, to live there?
I don't think so. In fact, it's maybe $20 at a time, but there's a congressman in Illinois, a retired general whom I support. I just like him. His name is Bill Enyart. I wouldn't like to not be allowed to give him money.
Well, that's another good point, I realize, but I did catch a PBS segment on this topic just recently, and on that program they were discussing with a half a dozen of these billionaires whom we have come to realize are driving education policy nationally these days, what their do-gooding, how their do-gooding bodes for these very basic concepts we harbor of democracy and the ability to decide these things for ourselves. And I just wanted to suggest that that's something we need to turn our thoughts to. I can't say how we should combat this, but increasingly we locals are feeling squeezed out of the process.
Yeah. Tamara, we appreciate the phone call. We appreciate you weighing in this morning. We got another call here. Let's go to this call, and we've got on the line joining us Tim. Good morning, Tim. You're on with Betty Bean.
Tim who?
Hey, guys. Appreciate Betty. It's Tim Burchett. I appreciate you being on. I wonder, Isabel says, hey, Betty. By the way,
Izzy.
She says, hey, listen, Betty's being very kind, but you look at these folks that are doing this.
It's most unlike me.
Do what?
Said it's most unlike me.
Yeah, well, it is very most. But a lot of folks that are doing this, listen, I grew up with a lot of these guys. They know the rules, and they know what's going to happen. They'll do this, and the IRS will send them a letter, and they'll say, oh, we're sorry, we didn't mean to do it. I mean, it's the same old thing over and over. Look, like my dad used to always say, people get tired of me quoting him, but follow the money. Look, they've got a lot invested in this system of whatever it is that they're trying to produce. And it's come down to the point where I'm going to say it again, but our kids have become a decimal point on somebody on Wall Street's portfolio. And they got too much money invested in all this to see it fail, regardless of what becomes of our children. Yeah. This has nothing to do with educating kids. This has to do with power. Has to do with big, big money. That's why this is a drop in the bucket. They could care less. But if they lose this school system, one of the biggest ones in the state, the people far be it for the people of Knox County that live in that district to have control over their own schools. You know, and that's the attitude you're facing. And I grew up with all these folks. I know how they are, and that's just the truth. And they can call me all day and be angry about it. But dadgummit, we all know it, and the people listening right now know it. And these poor teachers who came up to me yesterday when I was at Wright's Cafeteria who said, I would love to get vocal about what's going on in the school system, but I'm afraid for my job. And that is just completely wrong. It's wrong anywhere. People in my office tell me how wrong I am every day, and they don't get fired. And we've got a system in place right now where the arrogance is beyond belief. And this school board race, it tilts it in the favor of the people. And I'm afraid they just realized that the people have woken up, and the call came from on high to unload the cash registers, because we got a candidate in this race, and they're afraid that the people of that district are going to take over, and that's what's happened. And they're afraid of it, and that's all I really got to say. Betty, what do you think? I'll hang up and listen to your comment. I'm just curious, Betty, what do you think about that?
Well, I've already said I live in the 2nd District, as you know, and I feel rather invaded. That's why I wanted my boss to run the headline, "Send lawyers, guns, and money," but she didn't like that headline.
Mayor, Mr. Mayor, I got a question for you, actually, that arose yesterday talking about this whole situation. Somebody asked me, they said, well, if it's an IRS matter, then how come why is the law director in Knox County getting involved in it then? So
the law director was just asked his opinion.
Yeah, that was my fault.
But arms, by a citizen.
Yeah, I called it.
Far be it for a citizen to call their elected officials. You can ask any attorney this. Look, you get on the Internet, everybody knows that a nonprofit is not supposed to get in politics. Not only are they endorsing, they're running other members down. Far be it for the school board to elect their own chairman that we have not approved of. And they run the chairman down, which is not a way you build alliances, by the way. And then you ask for, yard sign locations and fundraising? I mean, come on. They know the rules, and they know they'll get a slap on the wrist. But McIntyre's bunch, that's what they do. I mean, they did it once before in Sandra Lockless race, and they'll do it again. It's just, they get by with it. If you and I were to try to do it, they'd be lawyers on us overnight. But when you got them on staff, it doesn't really matter, guys. Yeah. I mean, this is a classic David and Goliath story, and they are afraid that David is getting ready to put a stomping on them, which he should. And I hope the people in that district are awake and know and are following what the heck's going on with this thing, because it's a classic case of this. Sometimes, and I've been the benefit of their money some, and they've worked against me some. So it's just and you're not going to do anything about it other than beat them. And the people of that district, their voices can be heard. So, sorry I went to preaching.
No, Mr. Mayor, we appreciate it. We'll let you go. Isabel, keep the mayor under control there.
He will. See you. All right.
See y'all. We're talking with Betty Bean. We'll take one more quick break. When we get back, we'll finish up with Miss Betty Bean. She's here with us in studio. Back in a moment to finish it all up for this wet Tuesday morning. It's the Rude Awakening. Yes, getting ready to finish up. It is a very wet Tuesday morning, and unfortunately the weather not going away anytime soon, at least not today. You're going to see periods of heavy rain at times, possibly some thunderstorms throughout the day. You're going to see some downpours. You're going to see some heavy winds possible as well. So be very careful if you're out on the roadways today. Very wet conditions, very poor driving conditions today. Just take it very easy. Speaking of the roadways, they are feverishly trying to get everything back up and open out on westbound 40 and south, to 275. But things should be getting back to normal here within the next
Just getting
hour.
those left lanes.
Yeah.
That's what Pete said. So
there you go. We have reports of 2 lanes open, possibly 3 lanes open on 40, westbound 40. Just take it easy. And, of course, 275, they'll get everything situated there as well soon. So just be careful on the roadways. Betty Bean, you were a joy. Thank you so much for coming on our show. Seriously.
Little Miss Sunshine.
We enjoy you coming on. We really enjoyed having you this morning, and I really enjoy your work in the political arena and in the shopper news. Now, reading your stuff as I have over the past year, it seems like you've been writing about education for years and years now, right?
No.
What? No. You mentioned you just started what?
December.
Not even a year yet. Coming up on a year.
No, actually, the ACE education reporter is my boss, Sandra Clark, has covered it for decades. But she was so upset and disappointed at the way things were going. She wrote an editorial about it. She handed it off to me because she knew that if she stayed, she was going to have to bash, or it would be interpreted as bashing people she really liked.
Really?
And she didn't want to do that. And she knows I have no problem with it. So.
Well, we appreciate you being one of the strong, loud voices out there that stands up. And regardless of whether someone says, "Oh, well, that's mean, that's this, that's that," it takes a real reporter with some guts and some dedication to their craft to stand up and say, "Look, here's a story, here's the information. Somebody's got to tell it," and you do it every time in every story.
Well, thank you. It also might be just that being the oldest rat in the barn.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm proud to be in that barn with you because people may dislike what we do and may dislike us, but you know what? They still keep reading, they still keep listening, and they still keep going. We need somebody to tell us some information occasionally, so we do appreciate what you do, and thank you. And you and people like Danila and even us here occasionally on the Rude Awakening. We get out there and try to give you as much information as we can. But like we say every day, we can't make you care. You got to be the one that goes out there and wants to care and wants to learn this stuff. It's out there. You just got to dig around and find it. You can find Betty Bean on the pages of the Shopper News. You can find them online, shoppernewsnow.com. Betty Bean, you're a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For Betty, for Shine, this is Mike. We'll see you tomorrow.